Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Traha, and I'm the newest member of the nutrition support staff at LDOE. And today I'm going to be conducting your training on civil rights. It's right at 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. The purpose of the civil rights training is to inform, educate, and support all staff that interact with the child nutrition programs. This training will cover USDA civil rights requirements, staff responsibilities, and resources and information available to assist staff in carrying out their civil rights responsibilities. Here's our outline for today. First, we will cover the requirement to collect race and ethnicity data and why that information is collected. Second, we will discuss public notification systems. This is the process by which SFAs notify the potential applicants of the availability of meals. Third, what should an SFA do if they receive a complaint alleging discrimination in the school nutrition programs from a student or parent? Next, we will discuss what a SFA should do if there are areas of noncompliance and how to handle reporting of compliance issues. We will briefly touch on issues of accommodating children with special dietary needs. This is not a complete special dietary needs presentation, but we'll cover the topic from the lens of ensuring equal access. We will also discuss the language assistance requirements. And finally, we will discuss conflict resolution and civil rights issues related to customer service practice. This could occur anywhere in the continuum of participation, from applicants turning in free and reduced priced applications to overt identification of meal status in the lunch line. There are a number of civil rights laws pertinent to the child nutrition programs. Title VI, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits discrimination based on sex under any education program or activity that is receiving federal financial assistance. And Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibits discrimination based on disability. Additional civil rights laws include the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which prohibits discrimination based on disability in all services, programs, and activities provided to the public by state and local governments, except public transportation services. The Age Discrimination Act of 1975 prohibits discrimination based on age in programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. And the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. Here are other resources and authorities on civil rights in child nutrition programs. I will draw your attention to FNS Instruction 113-1, which is entitled Civil Rights Compliance and Enforcement, Nutrition Programs and Activities. This guidance covers the scope of civil rights laws in child nutrition programs. What is discrimination? Discrimination is defined as a different treatment, which makes a distinction of one person or group, either intentionally, by neglect, or by actions or lack of actions based on the protected classes. Examples of discrimination include giving one group or type of participants larger or extra helpings of food, separating genders, failing to provide children with a dietary disability accommodating meals, failing to provide program information to all potential program applicants. Protected classes in the child nutrition program are race, age, color, sex, national origin, and disability. This means that an alleged discrimination complaint will pertain to one of these areas. Civil rights training is required annually for all staff. This includes full-time staff, part-time staff, temporary staff, central office and site staff, and volunteers. Documentation for civil rights training must be maintained for 3 years, plus the current year. Documentation must include sign-in sheets, agendas, and dates and times of training. All civil rights training should be tracked on the training tracking tool. And there are two training tracking tools. One is the USDA training tracking tool, and the other one can be found through the Louisiana Fit Kids website. There are certain requirements that are required in civil rights training. Those are: 1, collection and use of data; 2, effective public notification systems; 3, compliant procedures; 4, compliance review techniques; 5, resolution of noncompliance; 6, requirements for accommodation of persons with disabilities; requirements for language assistance, conflict resolution, and customer service. All CNPs that participate in a USDA child nutrition program must have a system to collect the racial and ethnic data of program participants in accordance with FNS Instruction 113-1. This data is used to determine the state's compliance with federal civil rights laws. FNS Instruction 113-1, Appendix B, Section F, titled Data Collection 2B and 3B, also states, in reference to CACFP and SFSP respectively, visual identification may be used by institutions and sponsors to determine a beneficiary's racial or ethnic category. Upon further review, USDA determined the only program with a regulatory requirement to collect race and ethnicity data via visual observation and identification is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. USDA has reviewed this policy and concluded that the use of visual observation and identification by CACFP institutions and facilities and SFSP sponsors is not an appropriate method for collecting race or ethnicity data in the CACFP and SFSP programs. CACFP and SFSP sponsors should continue explaining the importance of this data to participants as they encourage them to self-identify and self-report. However, there are alternative means by which CACFP institutions and facilities and SFSP sponsors can obtain race or ethnicity data in the CACFP and SFSP programs, such as utilizing data from other sources in which the respondent has self-identified race or ethnicity, such as school databases. The collection of this information is strictly for statistical reporting requirements and has no effect on the determination of their eligibility to receive program benefits. This data must be collected annually. This data must also be maintained in a confidential file for 3 years plus the current year, and this information should be restricted to all authorized personnel and other authorized state and federal personnel when requested. Ethnicity is broken down into 2 categories: Hispanic or Latino, and non-Hispanic or non-Latino. The racial categories include American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, and white. A person may identify as belonging to multiple racial categories. All FNS assistance programs must include a public notification system. The purpose of a public notification is to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of the program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the policy of non-discrimination, and the procedure for filing a complaint. Through public outreach, SFAs are trying to ensure program access to as many potential participants as possible. Public notification must include information regarding eligibility, benefits and services, program availability, hours and location, applicant rights and responsibilities, procedures for filing a complaint, non-discrimination policies, and any program changes. CNPs must notify the public annually of their participation in the program. Notification to applicants and participants must include information regarding program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the procedure for filing a complaint, and the policy of non-discrimination. The public notification system must include the following elements: a public release. SFAs must take specific action to inform the public of their program rights and responsibilities and the steps necessary for participation in the program. They must display the And Justice for All poster. SFAs must display the And Justice for All poster in the correct size, which is 11 inches by 17 inches, in a prominent location where it is visible to all participants in the program. The poster provides the USDA address and phone numbers that the public can use to file a complaint if they think their civil rights have been violated. Applicants and participants must be advised of their right to file a discrimination complaint, how to file a complaint, and the complaint procedures. And this poster here that you see on the slide is the most recent one. It has the government building on it. If you have one with a Statue of Liberty, that's the old one. The non-discrimination statement, all informational materials, including websites used by CNPs to inform the public about FNS programs, must contain the non-discrimination statement. Public notification can include methods such as internet and computer-based applications, newspaper, radio or television, letters, leaflets, and brochures, bulletins, and just make sure to convey the message of equal opportunity in photos and other graphics that are used to promote the program information to applicants or participants. The media release must be provided at or near the beginning of the school year to local news media, the unemployment office, and to any major employers contemplating layoffs in the area. The media release must include the eligibility criteria for free and reduced meal prices. For CEP schools, the media release should inform the public that school meals will be free to all enrolled students. It is at the discretion of the media if they decide to publish the media release. Another method of public notification is informational letters that inform households of program availability. Informational letters must be distributed by the schools at the beginning of the school year by mail, email, or in person. Letters cannot be sent at the end of the school year for the upcoming school year. All CNPs must prominently display the USDA non-discrimination poster and Justice for All. The poster must be 11 inches by 17 inches in size, and posters should be displayed in each SFA and in a location that is easily visible to the students and the public in the food service area. The USDA non-discrimination statement must be included on all forms of communication and program materials. Program materials include all public information and education. The long version of the non-discrimination statement is required on all documents pertaining to student eligibility, such as prototypes of letters to the households, verification, and direct certification. The long version of the non-discrimination statement should also be used whenever possible or where space permits. The short version of the non-discrimination statement can be used if the document is too small and there's limited space, such as on menus or nutrition flyers. If using the short version of the non-discrimination statement, a 9-point font is required. This is the long version of the non-discrimination statement, and we do have it available on the CNP website. And this is the long version in Spanish. And the link that's on the CNP website does bring you to the USDA website, which has it in several different languages. There are a couple of requirements when printing the non-discrimination statement. The first printing requirement is that the wording for either statement cannot be changed. The second printing requirement is that the print size cannot be smaller than the text of the material. Also note that in auditory presentations, such as public service announcements, the shortened version may also be used, but the long version is required on any vital documents, even if it's only 1 page long. The non-discrimination statement is required on any materials that mention the programs to the public. These materials may include advertisements, publications, letters, enrollment forms, broadcasts, CNP websites, etc. Items that do not require the non-discrimination statement to be printed are incentive items such as cups, buttons, magnets, and pins due to the impractical size. Applicants and participants must be advised of their right to file a complaint, how to file a complaint, and complaint procedures. Any person who believes they have been discriminated against based on the protected classes of national origin, race, sex, color, age, or disability has a right to file a complaint within 180 days of the alleged discriminatory action. The first step is to document the complaint and make an effort to obtain the following information: the name, address, and phone number of the complaint, specific name and location of entity delivering the benefit or service, the nature of the incident, action, or method of administration that led to the complainant to feel discriminated against, the basis on which the complainant feels discrimination exists according to those different classes, the names, titles, business addresses, and phone numbers of persons who may have knowledge of the discriminatory action, the dates during which the alleged discriminatory action occurred, or, if continuing, the duration of such actions. All complaints should then be forwarded directly to USDA. The second step for civil rights complaints is to contact USDA. All verbal or written complaints must be forwarded to the Civil Rights Division of USDA Food and Nutrition Services within 3 days of receiving the complaint. The third step in civil rights complaints is to maintain documentation. All civil rights documentation should be kept at a central location and should be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. Here is an example of the discrimination complaint form. It can be located at the web address or on the CNP website. The complaint form must be available at all sites participating in the child nutrition program. When an individual wants to report a discrimination complaint, child nutrition staff should have as little involvement as possible with the complaint process. All staff must be trained on civil rights and this civil rights complaint form. The form must be available at all sites, and staff should allow individuals to file their own complaint with as little involvement as possible. A few civil rights reminders include: 1, the USDA regional office is responsible for the review of state agencies. 2, the state agency is responsible for the review of SFAs. The state agency must report any significant findings to USDA. CNPs must receive a pre-approval visit to ensure compliance with civil rights before receiving federal funds. And compliance is assessed through the administrative review. If noncompliance is indicated, a corrective action plan must be implemented to achieve voluntary compliance within 60 days. The corrective action plan should describe the agency's actions to be taken to resolve the noncompliance determined. If corrective action is not achieved within 60 days, suspension of assistance or termination may result. So here is your checklist for civil rights compliance. You have to make sure that you have the civil rights written policy and complaint log, Train all staff and volunteers annually. All staff should know the CNP civil rights policy. Prominently display your And Justice for All poster. Collect and record racial and ethnic data. Keep all records for 3 years plus the current year. Maintain civil rights complaint procedures and forms, and place the non-discrimination statement on all printed materials mentioning child nutrition programs. As a reminder, district policies regarding civil rights complaints should specify how civil rights compliance is handled for CNP separate from other programs. Accommodating persons with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations refer to ensuring that participants with a disability have physical access to programs and services, such as easily accessible entrances and restrooms. SFA is required to provide food substitutions or modifications for a student with a dietary disability. A written medical statement completed and signed by a licensed physician, advanced practice nurse with prescriptive authority, or a physician assistant is required to be on file when the request falls out of the meal pattern. Meal pattern modifications within meal pattern do not require a medical statement. Meal pattern modification outside of the meal pattern does require a medical statement provided by a licensed medical provider. In the state of Louisiana, a licensed medical provider includes a medical doctor, physician assistant, or a nurse. So a statement from a registered dietitian or signed by a registered dietitian or a registered nurse cannot be accepted. The medical statement must include information about the child's impairment and how it restricts the diet, an explanation of what must be done to accommodate the disability, and the foods to be omitted and the recommended alternatives. If the medical statement does not fully explain the modification needed, the SFS should contact the guardian for additional information. As a reminder, receipt of clarification should not delay the modified diet. Limited English proficiency, or LEP, are those individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English. SFAs must take reasonable steps to assure meaningful access to the information and services they provide to individuals with LEP. Reasonable steps would include an evaluation of the following factors: the number or proportion of LEP persons eligible to be served or likely to be encountered by the program, the frequency with which LEP individuals come in contact with the program, the nature and importance of the program, activity, or service provided by the program to people's lives, and the resources that are available and the costs to provide these services. A shortage of resources or anticipated costs to provide these services to individuals with LEP does not eliminate the requirement to do so. SFAs must explore the most cost-effective means of delivering services and information to people with LEP. All child nutrition program information should be provided in the necessary language for all participants and their families. For example, enrollment forms, menus, brochures, and letters should be provided in the necessary language for all participants and their families. Language interpreters can be helpful when dealing with someone with limited English proficiency. Volunteers may be used, but they should understand the ethics required when using an interpreter. For example, a Spanish teacher could assist a household in completing a meal application, but would need to be trained on the importance of keeping all information confidential. Also, children should not be used as interpreter. For more information and resources, you can go to www.lep.gov. In no way is a SFA to impede with a customer's right to file a civil rights complaint. However, most conflicts are easily resolved by using appropriate tools. Conflict resolution consists of useful skills to assist with the solution of complaints. These skills include using a win-win approach, change the conflict from an attack and defense to cooperation and avoid the desire to blame, use a creative response, turn problems into possibilities to improve the situation, demonstrate empathy, help others feel that they are understood by being an active listener, use appropriate assertiveness, state your case without arousing the defense of another person. Remember to use I statements to communicate your feelings directly. Manage your emotions. Stick strictly to the facts of the complaint and communicate your feelings directly. And have a willingness to resolve. Identify barriers to a resolution and overcome those barriers. Avoid repeating the situation. If the complainant persists with their complaint, direct them to file their complaint with the USDA's Office of Civil Rights. Customer service is defined as effectively communicating with customers, responding to the customer's needs, valuing the customer's worth, and instilling excellence through courtesy, confidence, and enthusiasm. Treating customers with respect and dignity through excellent customer service saves you time and minimizes opportunities for complaints and angry customers. All students must be allowed equal opportunities to participate in the child nutrition programs, regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. All participants of the child nutrition program must be treated equitably. In order to reduce the risk of civil rights discrimination complaint, ask yourself the following questions each time a participant comes to your program for services. Am I treating this person in the same manner I treat others? 2, have I given this person the opportunity to ask questions? And 3, have I provided the person with the information he or she needs to make necessary decisions? During meal service, all students with the same grade grouping must be offered the same menu selection regardless of their eligibility, sex, national origin, race, color, age, or disability. All varieties and selections must be made available to all students within the same grade grouping. In the example provided here, do the high school football players get more food or bigger scoops? Or are certain food items saved for certain groups of students? In the example provided, it would be discrimination to provide high school football players with bigger scoops of food or save certain food items for a specific group. USDA policy prohibits the denial of meals as a disciplinary action against any student who is enrolled in a school that participates in child nutrition programs. It also prohibits requiring a child to work or earn their meal. Identifying information must not be used for any purpose other than determining and verifying eligibility for free or reduced meals. Overt identification should be considered in different situations beyond the application process. This includes at the point of service where other students may see eligibility statuses on the cashier computer screen, or for example, when special functions take place that require alternate meal pattern service types, such as field trips and class parties. In these instances, no overt identification of meal status should occur. And these are some other resources that we have available for you on civil rights and customer service. So if you want to take a look at those, you can. And that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box, or if you have a question about any situation that you may have at your school, you can always get in contact with us at 225-342-9661, or email us at childnutritionprograms@la.gov. To the question, I have an employee that's taking the training with me at this time. How can he obtain his certificate? If you put his name in the chat box, we'll make sure to get one, and where you're from. Any other questions? All right. Well, if not, that concludes today's training. Thank you all for attending. I hope you all have a great day and rest of your week.